Have you ever wondered how a single tweet can spark a global movement for diversity in tech? In today's episode, we are thrilled to have Paris Chandler, the visionary behind Black Tech Twitter and the founder of Black Tech Pipeline. Paris shares her journey from being a beautician to being a software engineer and how she mobilized a community of Black technologists. Get ready to dive into the challenges and triumphs of creating inclusive tech spaces, the impact of DEI initiatives, and the future of diversity in Web3 and AI. Stay tuned for an inspiring and thought-provoking conversation. You're listening to Barely Legal in Web3. I'm your host, Jamelia Greer. This podcast is an unapologetic look at what's happening in tech from a lawyer's perspective. In addition to Tech Talk, each Monday I'll be sharing insights from my journey from lawyer in small-town Connecticut to an entrepreneur in Dubai. Sound like fun? Go ahead and subscribe to make sure you never miss an episode. Now let's get into it. Paris, welcome to Barely Legal in Web3. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So, Paris, I wanted to talk a little bit about your evolution in getting into tech and your story particularly. And for some people who don't know, you created the hashtag Black Tech Twitter. And I want to talk a little bit about why you created that and the viral tweet that kind of kicked off that whole sensation.
Yeah. So I got into tech in 2017, and entering tech from the jobs I used to have before, like I used to be like a hostess or a waitress or a wax specialist. That was like my career. I was an esthetician, but I always came from like environments that were very diverse and I felt very represented. And so it wasn't a thought to me of ever feeling like I'm the only one there or I can't be my full self. Like I didn't feel that way. And then once I entered tech as a software engineer, I entered environments that were either predominantly white or it was like all white people. And I was the only Black woman and Black person in the company, period. So going from the experience I was used to like this new environment that I have to navigate of being the only one, it wasn't a good feeling. And it came with tons of different experiences, I'm sure you can imagine, right? And so I got onto Twitter to sort of talk about my journey in tech, but I also realized that there's like this big tech community on Twitter that is diverse. There are a lot of Black people on there who are technologists, not just software engineers, but a range of tech professionals. And so I wanted to see how many of us were out there specifically. I was like, okay, like, you know, I have some software engineers, designers, and things like that, but I want to see like how many of us are here. And so I put out the tweet asking, what does Black Twitter in tech look like? Since Black Twitter is like its own thing already. And my tweet ended up going viral and it mobilized the Black Tech Twitter community. So it's Black technologists from all around the world, all over sort of like the tech industry. And yeah, that's how I mobilized that sort of movement. And it got a lot of recognition by the industry and a lot of employers. And those employers wanted me to recruit candidates from Black Tech Twitter into their companies. And so that's sort of how like my tech recruitment career started.
Yeah, that's really interesting because I never, so I grew up in a predominantly white town. And so for me, my whole life has always been, I guess I've gotten used to being the only Black person in the room since like a very young age. And so I never really thought about what that feels like if you haven't been, right? I mean, I know it doesn't feel good for sure. But I never thought about like how it would feel as a transition from, a space where there are more, people of color around you and there is more diversity moving into a space like tech. And, law as well is also a space that for many areas is predominantly male or predominantly white. And so I could totally see the need for that. And I'm so glad that you did it. And I am on Black Tech Twitter and Black Twitter too, and following the hashtag. And there's certainly a lot of people that have come up and they're very appreciative of the work that you do.
And I appreciate them. Like it's like, again, a community effort, right? Like we came together, people talk about the community, so people join and learn about it. And they're able to take advantage of the resources that we all provide together. It just helps the community really like expand and grow. And then it just feels like even though it's mainly online, it feels like you do have a safe space, even when maybe you are working in like a predominantly white space. You can get online and you have your people there and you can ask for advice or vent and things like that. So it's nice. Yeah.
There's been, I think, over the past year or so, sort of a backlash or a pullback on funds on DEI initiatives in the US. Have you seen much of that impacting, the work that you do and the space that you're in? And if so, how has it shown up?
Yeah. And it's difficult to say because like the economy is also not doing very well right now, especially in the tech space with so many hiring freezes and layoffs where a lot of companies have pulled back on hiring or have done hiring freezes or they're just not hiring as much as they were. And so it's hard to tell if companies, maybe aren't investing in, maybe like job boards or DEI efforts because they are struggling financially. It's hard to tell, but like looking at the news at least, I'm seeing like a lot of companies draw back on DEI. It's just not a priority. It's not something that they can consider in the budget right now because they're struggling in other areas supposedly where their funds would be better allocated. Um, and then there are companies who like they made this commitment to DEI in 2020, right? And they're like this is what we're going to do. This is really important to us. It's going to be a priority. And then now you see that it's really not. Like when it comes to money, or even politically, you see that DEI isn't being practiced or pledged for as heavily. They're drawing back on it, right? So I don't know. I think with DEI, it's always been hard to tell what a company's intentions are on it really. Because even though they can say one thing, but you can also like look at the data and things like that and see like, what's really going on behind the scenes. There are people in these organizations who truly do want it. They truly do want to practice it and see that change, but they only have so much power because they have to answer to their higher ups and the people who are in charge of saying these things can be in place. We can create a budget for this. So I definitely have seen the impacts, but that also mixes in with the economy,
Right.
period.
Right. I think you're absolutely right. Like, it's hard to tell whether that data that, is just focused on those initiatives. Is it because of the initiative? Is it because of the economy? Is the company doing well? And there's so many factors that play into that. And, for
Mhm.
me, when I look at that, I'm a proponent of people, looking abroad, of course, and going overseas and seeing what other opportunities there are. Particularly, I mean, well, I'm in Dubai, but I think anywhere in the world, there is a need for people who are skilled within technology, whether it's people who understand software engineering or understand AI as it's coming up, prompters, and there's a lot of remote jobs too. And so, do you think that that's something that people should look into as well if they're looking to get into technology such as like Web3? Should they look abroad as well?
Like looking abroad for job opportunities?
Yeah.
I think that depends because I guess like I'm thinking of like a US candidate looking abroad for um opportunities, there's going to be like this big pay difference, right? Like I'm seeing right now a lot of companies are they are outsourcing. So they are looking for talent outside of the US. Which is causing like all these layoffs here. Like a lot of people are losing their jobs here. Um and so I think the looking abroad I think it just really depends, especially like when it comes to finances.
Right. And I think you're right. So there's like two buckets. There's that idea that companies are outsourcing to cut costs because they want
Yeah.
cheaper labor potentially. And then I think what my experience has been this sort of niche area where US companies are looking to have Americans maybe take um, managerial roles in tech or build tech infrastructure or teams abroad. And so maybe that's a different lane, and maybe somebody with more years of experience might want to look into
Mhm.
something like that.
Yeah, for sure. I've seen it. So I've seen companies here, they'll send their American team across seas to sort of like help build up these teams and get them familiar with like, I don't know, a sort of code base or their infrastructure, whatever it is. They'll help build those teams up and then they'll come back here. But they've helped like develop something across seas for other people to go ahead and take over. So I've seen things like that done before for sure.
Unless they don't wanna come back, like in my case, where they just stay
Oh, yeah.
forever.
Some family Oh, yeah. I mean, I know a few people who have stayed in, like, Sweden or Paris, like, they didn't come back. I don't blame them. I know the way of life there is a lot different than here.
So I wanted to talk a bit about Web3 because it's funny, there is this idea in Web3, and I talk to a lot of people about this, about whether Web3 is opening doors for women and minorities in the way that we would have hoped that Web2 would do that. And some people say yes, it is because it's anonymous. There's no reason, if you have a avatar, you can operate under your avatar and no one will know that you're a woman or no one will know that you're black and therefore you're afforded the same opportunities as others. What are your thoughts on that kind of narrative?
Honestly, I think there's a few things I think about that. I think, like, when there's a flat foundation and anyone can join in and it doesn't I guess your identity doesn't have to be, like, known, then there could be, um there could be equity, but again, like, it's still an area where you have to pay to play, right? And, like, some people are coming from backgrounds where they can't afford to pay to play, and so those who do, they end up gaining all of that wealth and those resources before the person at the bottom can even enter. So I think, like, we're still facing those same issues. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of tricky, I think.
Yeah, it is tricky. I mean, in one hand, I see that online everything appears to be, people have their NFTs as their profile picture, they have an avatar, you can't really tell who is who. But then when you come to these events, and I think that's where things get a little bit more real, is that when you go to events and you show up and everyone's been operating under this anonymous identity or this, other sort of identity rather, um, you see that it is not really diverse. At least I
Mhm.
can say that for abroad. I know in the US, there's a lot of, events that are, you have events that are focused on people who are in technology that are Black coming together and networking and all of that. But I think when you come outside of that circle and you go to events that are just more broad,
Mhm.
like whether it's NFT NYC, here we had Token 2049 in Dubai, and they had one in Singapore, and those are going all around the world. You really don't see that much diversity in those spaces.
Yeah. No, I think it's the same thing. Like, I agree. You do see, like, it's not as diverse as you would like. Um, and, the other thing is a lot of the leaders in this space, they are, like, these wealthy white or just wealthy men. And they believe that because this is a space where you don't have to sort of like verify your identity, you don't have to let people know who you are, that this isn't a space that needs like DEI practices or like, like there doesn't need to be any awareness around it, but that's not true. Um, and I guess like I don't know, you still face in these rooms like my fiance is heavily involved in crypto. Heavily, heavily involved. And he enters like he's part of all of these different communities where there's still like tons of racism. Like people are just straight up very racist. So you're still dealing with that. Even though like your identity isn't being revealed, you still have to sit there and experience like people saying these really racist or sexist discriminatory things. But you're obviously not some people aren't gonna say anything because they don't wanna give their identity away. They don't wanna be, removed from this space or, feel like they're becoming a nuisance because they're bringing up these topics that this space doesn't really believe need to be talked about, you know? So again, very, very tricky.
Yeah, I mean, I can say that, um, it is that way. Whether you are on Twitter or whether you are on, in a Discord where people feel that they can say anything because they are anonymous. And so what comes out are all of these brash statements and, disparaging remarks about women unrelated to crypto, but,
Mm,
just just totally out there. And those ideas have a way of creating a barrier for people who want to enter the space. So if I'm just learning about crypto and I jump into a Discord server and I hear or I see people, tossing around racial slurs or saying, disparaging remarks about women, even though it's quote unquote in jest, um, that's gonna make me be like, "Oh, this is not for me. Why am I here?" And we label it as crypto bro, right? And so that term crypto bro has taken on a lot of different it's kind of a euphemism actually, I say. It's just a way for people to kind of condone some of the toxic culture that has creeped into this space.
Mhm. Yep.
Yeah. And so I actually listened to you talking about AI and some of the bias in algorithms. And so kind of pivoting from Web3 and then moving towards AI. We talked about how DEI practices in Web3 maybe aren't as prevalent as we would like them to be. How about in
Mhm.
AI when we talk about training up models and who is training up the models and what are we seeing as a result of the people who are actually training up these models and their biases?
It's actually, I mean, it's not funny, but it's like a coincidence. Um, I think it was yesterday or Saturday, I saw a video, by the leader of OpenAI, who I think he stated something like, instead of people getting universal, income, universal, I think a basic income, um, why not give people universal computational, income, something like that, where instead of people, like, being able to sort of afford their way of life, they have, the same resources where they can build something and maybe sell it or something like that, which and it's just like you are so far removed from
Mm.
reality, like, that's not but what I'm saying is those are our leaders, right? Those are the people who are, you know, building, hiring, getting investments, putting things out into the market for everyone to use. That's who they are, which is really scary, especially in this digital era of AI, right? Because that's being sort of plugged into everything. Um, and it makes you wonder, like, if you are thinking sort of like in this capacity, like, how are you building, right? Like, what are you putting into these sort of like systems and models that is going to like leave certain people behind, forget about them or have these sort of assumptions of them, which is that bias, right? Um, and so that I guess that's like sort of our reality. Um, I don't what was the question? Sorry, I feel like I was just thinking about what I saw
No,
this weekend.
no. I mean, I think it's really relevant. I mean, in the context of any type of person building this sort of AI ecosystem, because it's not just an AI product, it's a whole ecosystem, it's a whole way of how AI will integrate with other areas of our life. The idea of coming up with this instead of a basic income, basic computational income or something like that, it is removed, but it's based upon his experience in what he thinks life should be like, because life is really just perspective, right? And so
Right.
for most people, we think, oh, well, in order for me to live, I'm going to need money. I'm going to need income to be able to buy food, to be able to pay rent or pay for my car lease, whatever it is. You need income. But in his reality, in his perspective of life, actually what you need is you need some sort of computing credit so that you can
Mhm.
build and grow or exchange these credits for something else. And it is completely detached. I think it's very fascinating to see how we were talking about decentralization and AI has brought us right back to a very, very solid centralized model of almost one or two people, maybe just a handful. You've got Elon Musk on the end, trying to build his AI empire. You have Sam
Mhm.
Altman building, OpenAI, and then you have a few others who are either backers or just waiting in the wings for something to crack. And so, a very centralized model of the same personas building the technology that will have a huge impact on the rest of the world.
Yeah. I know. It's scary and this is why I was saying that, like, we need to be in these rooms, and when I say we, I mean, like, anyone opposite of, like, a straight white man needs to be in these rooms, but especially Black and brown people where we're lending our voices, we're lending our experiences and backgrounds and our skills, like, those are really important, um, because if we don't, that's who's gonna be building for us. Well, they may not be building for us, they might forget. If this is their perspective of life where you don't need, universal basic income, you just, "Here, just take, you know, these computation" what is it? "These computer credits and go do something with it." That's not reality. That's just reality for you. That's how you assume life to be, and it's just not true. And so it's scary. So that's why we do need, like, representation is just so important, not just for people to see like, "Oh, I can enter these spaces. I can enter these careers because I see myself in it." But it's also like, it's so we don't get left behind in this era, and the way we're going, it's a little scary. It could be a reality, based on what our leaders are and what they're saying.
The thought about any group of people getting left behind, I think that's a very real risk right now. I was thinking about this whole idea of these computational credits or whatever people would be paid in. And it really is a way to get people to think that you are working to be able to compute to build. You're essentially the gas for whatever it is I'm building. You're no longer a person, you are a commodity. You are a machine, a widget to create
Yeah.
power to fuel what it is that I'm building. And that is such a dystopian nightmare. And the sad part is that most people don't understand it because they don't understand the way the technology works. And when you look at blockchain and you look at things like proof, proof of any kind of proof system, whether it's proof of identity or proof of work system, really. When you look at the proof of work and you realize that, oh, there is work being done in order to prove things, and that's how we're getting along on this protocol, you realize that we're already there halfway. We're already in the system where we need work to be done, whether it's computational work for us to confirm and validate certain transactions, or we need work to be done for now we're seeing for AI to run. So I fear that we're almost already there and that a lot of people really don't realize it yet.
Yeah. That's also, like, a really great way of putting it, that we are already there. Um, yeah. I don't know, very scary. Scary climate to be in.
Yes. But I mean, I guess on the bright side, right? So I mean, I don't think we're totally, in the Black Mirror episode where we're not totally in the Black
Well,
Mirror
not yet.
episode. But
Yeah.
um as you begin to or as you continue to do your work with Black Tech Pipeline, and now we kind of going back to realize the significance and the importance of that work, what are some of the things that you see that need to happen in order for us to kind of get to where we need to be with more people of color being in the room and being part of these conversations?
We really need to educate our youth right now. We need to go back to our communities, um, and let, like, the kids know, whether this is, like, elementary, middle, high school, like, letting them know what these careers are, how much they pay, that's very important, um, and the power that you have when you have these sort of skills, and these skills range, right, because tech industry is so massive, um, but, like, it's so important to do that because the youth, that's our future, right? And we want them to go back when they're of age to the community again and continue teaching, continue helping people break into these sort of fields and careers, letting them see that they're, sort of represented in these industries. Um, because we have to look out for one another because no one else is, no one else will. It's so important. And I think, some people may have this mindset where it's like, "Okay, I'm just gonna focus on me. I'm gonna get my career, get my bag, and just, like, I just wanna live a happy life with my money," which is, I understand that's totally fine, but just remember, like, the impact of not giving back, helping people to get to where you are. Remember that impact, it creates this huge domino effect that, again, will keep us out of the future. We will not be represented there. Things will not work for us. We won't be able to take advantage of certain tools and resources or whatever is on the market because none of us were there helping build it. Not enough of us at least, right? So I think that's really, really important. Um, and with Black Tech Pipeline, like we partner with tons of different companies and organizations to offer opportunities like jobs, but also for educational resources or tickets to conferences and events where you continue networking and learning and upskilling and things like that. And that's another part of it, like helping people who are of age can get a job, help them, get into these sort of networks, get that career, and then helping those who are already in it, helping them upskill so that they can also become leaders and have that sort of power to make sure that we are in these rooms or making sure that we can build our own tables, right? Instead of just sitting at one. So again, it's like this huge, what is it? Like that it's a trickle down, right? Like it always matters from bottom up, up down. We need people all over that sort of
Yeah.
pipeline.
The idea that you touched upon with people who are maybe mid-level managers needing to stick around to be those senior managers and those roles is really important. And I, for one, I stuck around for a while and then I said, hey, that's it. I got to go. Being a tech and data lawyer, and managing teams, even though they were legal and compliance teams, but in the tech space, I can tell you that is so important because the risk is that once people are at that level, they've already been through about 10, 12 years of being in corporate. And so they may be
Mhm.
tired, they may be, disenfranchised in some way. They may sort of feel like, is this worth it for me? Am I actually going to get to where I want to be? And so there's this risk of them leaving. And so how do you make sure that people around? I think that's a huge part of the conversation, so that we, keep people who are going to senior roles in senior roles.
Yeah, and that's where I think, like, the community and the support comes in, right? It's, like, so important. Again, regardless if it's, like, the digital community or you can go to a meetup in person, whatever it is, I think having that is always helpful. It's sort of like when you go to an event where you don't know anyone, it's always gonna be you're always gonna feel a little more confident and a little more comfortable if there's, like, at least just one person there that you do know, that maybe that is a friend. It's like, okay, like, I can chill out a little bit, right? Like, it's the same thing in a workspace. It's the same thing in any career, industry, whatever. Like, having at least that one person, having a community, that's always gonna be helpful. That's there to have your back.
Well, Paris, we talked about, the need for more Black students and young Black professionals getting into the tech space, and the need for those who are in it sticking around. What would you say to someone who is maybe not in tech and just thinking about getting into the tech space, whether it's AI or Web3, and they hear us talking and they hear us say things like, potentially the budget for DEI has been cut, or there are some things going on in the space that we think are unethical. What would you say to that person?
No industry is perfect. So it doesn't matter if you go into tech or not, you are likely going to face these sort of challenges, even if it's on a smaller scale. Um, and so you can't let that deter you. That's gonna be everywhere you go, it doesn't matter. To me, I don't think it's an excuse to not sort of like pursue something, right? Um, the other thing about getting into tech, um, it's an industry that it has, like, so many different careers, so many different fields that you can sort of pursue and get into. You can go into nearly any company you'd like, in any industry, regardless if you're a technologist at a beauty company, technologist in an ed tech company, or gov tech, fintech, whatever wherever you wanna go, you can go as a technologist. Just you need to gain that sort of skill, that these companies or industries are looking for. So it's fun, it's creative and diverse, and I guess you have a lot of power and options there. That's why I think tech is so amazing. Um, and then technology also comes with so many different communities. I think that like there's Black Tech Twitter, but there's tons of Black tech communities, right? There are tons of women in tech communities, tons of LGBTQ community. Like there's a community for probably everything in tech. So I believe you'll definitely find your people. Um, I think another thing is like it just pays really well. I think that's so important. Um, And I say that it's really important because I speak to a lot of kids at schools, and I'll tell them, "I'm in tech, and this is why you should get into it." And what the kids wanna know is, "How much do you get paid?" And I'm like, "Wow, I did not think kids would care so much about money, but they do." So I'm like, "You get paid really well. You'll have a really great lifestyle if you're able to get into tech and get into sort of like a demanding career in tech, you'll get paid very well."
Yeah, I
So
think
yeah.
I think a lot of people need to hear that. They need to know the numbers. Compare the salaries in tech versus other areas,
Yeah.
and you'll be quite surprised. One thing you said that resonates with me is this whole idea that it can take you anywhere. So I worked in manufacturing, I've worked in hospitality, I worked in banking, all tech roles, legal tech. And so it cuts across all different types of industries. A lot of people think a job in tech means you're working at Meta or Google. It's like, no, you can work
Yeah.
anywhere, by the way. And you can do all these amazing things. Every industry needs tech people.
It's so true. Like, I love, like, makeup, right? If you go to, like, the Fenty Beauty website, they're hiring for software engineers, they're hiring for designers, like, you can again, anywhere. If you wanna work at a coffee brand, for some reason, I don't know, but coffee brands have websites. They need people to build and maintain them, right? You could be a technologist there, and I don't know. Nice.
Same,
Lots of
same,
diversity.
yeah, and same for the lawyers too. I tell the lawyers like, hey, no, companies need technologists, and companies that have tech need tech lawyers. So they should be also listening to this and thinking, hey, I can essentially work for any industry, understanding the legal implications of certain technology as well.
Yeah, and I deal with a lot of tech lawyers. My funny, with Black Tech Pipeline, because like, it's a legal agreement, right? So I do lots of lawyers come back to me with, like, red lines and things like that. So, yeah, and I've worked with companies in every field you could think of. So, yes, the lawyers are everywhere, the tech lawyers.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, Paris, this has been a great conversation. I just wanted to, give you kudos for all of your work in the Black tech space, from Black Tech Twitter to Black Tech Pipeline. I think it's really needed. And I really think that people need to understand the implications of not having diversity in the tech space, whether it's in Web3 or AI or even in Web2. The risk is not just about leaving people out. The risk is that when you get to your destination, you'll have a whole population of people who have no idea what's going on. And it's not just based on race, it's also based on socioeconomic status, too. There are tons of people who are being left out of the technology conversation, and we really need to do more to address that. So I wanted to thank you for all the work that you do.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me. This was great.
Excellent. Where can people find you if they want to continue the conversation?
So you can find me on Twitter at Paris Athena. And then there's also blacktechpipeline.com. We have a job board, newsletter, and talent directory. We partner with lots of different companies to give out really cool opportunities. So definitely check us out.
Excellent. Paris, thank you so much, and keep doing the good work.
Thank you.
Bye. Hey guys, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to today's episode. I appreciate when you guys tune in and the time that you take to listen to the show and support us. And I have one thing that I'd love for you to do that would really help us out, which is rate the show. If you've enjoyed it, make sure you rate it. You can do it on whatever platform you're listening on. That would do wonders for us. And if you really want to be a super fan and really support the show, there's a link below that you can support us and donate a small monthly contribution, which allows us to continue to create great content for you. Thanks so much again. Appreciate you, and see you next time.